Hello and welcome back to Three Wheels, One Direction, the podcast where three sisters who absolutely agree on everything
Huh?
sit down and talk about life, love, and whatever is currently driving us slightly mad. I'm Neha, I'm the youngest and therefore the most correct
She says that every time.
because it's true every time. With me, as always, are my gorgeous, wise, occasionally bossy sisters, Sangu
Hello, everyone.
and Ameeta.
Hi, lovely to be here, as always, in my own podcast.
Today, we are talking about priorities. What we prioritize, what we should prioritize, what our mothers told us to, and what we ourselves decided to ignore.
This is going to get personal very fast. I think it already has.
So, let's start at the beginning. When you hear the word priorities, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Honestly, the to-do list I wrote at the start of this year, which I might say I have not looked at even once since.
Same. I think for me, priorities always meant what needed to get done. Kids, work, house stuff, everything else was a luxury.
Yeah, that's true. That's such a common trap, isn't it? We all grow up, especially us, I think, coming from an Indian family with this very specific hierarchy: studies first, then marriage, then family, then career, maybe. And somewhere in that list, you, I think, like the actual you, what matters to you just doesn't appear.
It wasn't even something you questioned, really. You just absorbed it, but no one ever defined where you fit in your own responsibilities. Literally, my priorities change with every decade, actually.
And by the time we were in our 40s, you start asking that question. You realize you've spent the most part of your life on pretty much autopilot, prioritizing things you were supposed to, not what you perhaps should have.
It's true, prioritizing work, kids, partner's career, family, friends in need, pretty much everything other than my own needs, I felt, or wants for that matter. Most importantly, I think for me, it impacted my health. Being there for everyone and everything and running my own business meant burning the midnight oil, no sleep, no exercise, binge eating equals terrible health metrics, I must admit.
Hmm.
I know, and I think there's almost been an unwritten checklist that we have been ticking off. And in that, I think we have ticked a lot of boxes. Priorities, like I think Ameeta said earlier, change with the time in your life. So let's talk about the shift because I feel like our 40s have been genuinely different. There's something that happens. I don't know if the hormones, life experiences, or just pure exhaustion sometimes, maybe, where you stop pretending.
When
Yeah.
you stop pretending to be a nice person.
No,
You
I
did that a
can't, I
long
can't
time
even
ago.
pretend not to be a nice person. That's impossible.
I think for me, it was, I can say that it was a sort of specific moment. I was going through life like a robot. I'm not going to bore everyone with the details, but I do remember thinking a few times, how long am I going to do this? When am I going to start living my life the way I want to and not following someone else's instructions and fulfilling expectations? And of course, then panicking because I had cared about that life for 20 long years.
And that's terrifying. I can imagine. In my 40s, actually, I stopped giving a toss about things that didn't matter. Then came the 50s. That made the non caring attitude of the 40s look like child's play. I don't think my sisters like that at all. But frankly,
Actually, whether we like it or not, I think we have become the same because we're all in the same age category now.
Yes, I know. Scary.
Yeah.
yeah, but who gave you permission to be that?
It is terrifying, but I have to say it's also clarifying because if I didn't care about that life, what did I actually care about? And I really had to sit with that question, which I'm not really good at all. I'm inherently a doer, as you know. I don't just sit.
Yeah, you really don't. And you lean towards chocolate when you're anxious, a bit like me.
Yes, but I only lean towards dark chocolate. Funnily, at that time, my decision to change my priorities was instigated by somebody else's actions that pushed me to make some drastic changes and prioritize what I should have from the very beginning.
Hmm. Amita?
For me, the shift came a bit more gradually. I think losing people. I had a really close friend in particular, and I lost her at a very young age um, to breast cancer, and that sort of immediately makes you think you stop putting things off. You call more, you say yes to the trip, you eat the good biscuits.
Yes, most definitely. Eat the good biscuits. That's the title of our memoir, isn't it?
That's true. In fact, I have a story about that, but that's for another podcast. Truly, though, I felt grief teaches you that time is the one thing you genuinely can't get back. And once you really feel that, not just intellectually know it, then your priorities rearrange themselves. You pick up new things. In my case, I started swimming in the ocean, and I've always loved the beach, but I didn't want to deal with the sand. But losing my dear friend, something snapped and I started swimming in the ocean, and that love affair has continued for I don't know a couple of decades now, nearly. And I've swum right through winter and in several countries, including Amadad, Norway.
Oh my
Please,
God.
that was cold even in summer.
Yeah, why did you? I don't know, but
Yeah.
good on you.
Yeah, good on you. I had a slightly different version, less profound, I have to say. Uh, I was trying to do everything and be everywhere at the same time, the job, the social stuff, being the fun aunt, of course,
Of course.
staying on top of the news, managing my daughter's netball team, and staying active on 10 WhatsApp groups at the same time. And one day I had to just tell myself to stop because my body basically said, right, we need to reset.
Yeah. Can I say something here? I think I feel like people from our age group are especially trained to override the signal that tells us to stop and breathe and take time out. We just keep going.
Yeah.
Someone needs you, something needs you, you can rest later. That later actually never comes.
Yeah, that is so true. And that's also because I think we are the sandwiched generation, you know?
Yeah, I
Hmm.
agree. And just to point out over here, I feel this is not just true for women. I think men feel burnt out, pressed a lot. They just express it differently.
Yes, I think that will be another full podcast how men feel differently.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so let's get practical because I feel like we've established that historically we haven't been great at prioritizing ourselves. So, what can we do differently now,
Well, for
Amita?
my case, I've started asking one question before I commit to anything. How does this affect my world? This stops me from saying yes automatically, actually. I used to be a chronic yes person, but I've often found that it's not such a big deal if I say no, and it doesn't upset or offend the other person. A small thing this morning, but I had to say no to a friend to give her a lift to the beach. Not because I'm a mean person, but because it would have made me even later than I normally am had I made
You
a
don't say?
detour. And she was so understanding, not the end of the world, really.
I don't think I have ever had a problem saying no. I took a break from it when I got married, I have to say, but I don't know why I did that though. But since I entered my mid 40s, most often than not, I don't really say yes or no. I just do what I want to first and then I cater to the other things.
Of course. Typical Sangu style, you mean?
Having said that, as you know, my children, of course, take priority and they don't fall in this category, but everything else can usually wait.
Yes, and I think that applies to all three of us.
Totally. And please, children, listen to this, all of you. You are our priority.
Frankly, I think there comes a stage when children don't really need us that much and they're happier for us to prioritize ourselves than them or their needs. I can safely say that mine are at that stage and it's actually very refreshing and liberating for me.
Yeah.
I know, Amita, you have been through this stage already, but Neha, you have a few years yet.
Yep, I have a few years to go.
True, although I feel even for younger women, I would say prioritize your children's needs, but don't put yourself absolutely last.
Hmm.
That to me, that just creates stress and ultimately resentment. I also feel there's a loss of respect at some level if we're always putting ourselves last.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the bigger the gap, the harder it is to catch up.
Agree.
And it's hard. But for me, the practical change has been getting comfortable with saying no. If I can't go to something, I say I can't make it without a 4 paragraph explanation and 2 apologies. But I'm quite comfortable sitting with that discomfort now instead of avoiding it by overcommitting. It is like making small talk. There comes a stage when you don't give a shit about small talk at work or socially. You can't be bothered anymore.
Yeah, the over explaining, Neha, the guilt essays you used to write.
Yes, I know. I'm so sorry. I would love to come, but unfortunately, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I feel terrible. Maybe we can reschedule. So,
It's quite refreshing not to have to hear your 4 paragraph explanations. Now it's I can't make it next time.
full stop.
Can we also talk a little about the guilt piece? Because I think that sits underneath all of this. The reason we struggle with priorities is because prioritizing ourselves or anything that is not on the approved list comes with guilt. Cultural guilt, family guilt, mom guilt, just guilt.
True. And as Indian women who grew up with a certain set of expectations, in went to Catholic schools, even living in Australia decades later, that guilt just doesn't dissolve. It's in the wiring. So it's the Indian guilt, the Catholic guilt, the mum guilt, family guilt, cultural, the works.
Yeah, and that is super accurate in all our cases. Do you think when you shift your priorities, sometimes your relationships shift too? And not
Hmm.
everyone moves with you.
Yeah, that's true. And it can be sometimes painful, but this can be good for both parties. If everyone prioritizes themselves, then there's less of a need for another's attention.
This is true of all relationships. And actually, Sangu, I totally agree with you. Um, and this applies to friends and family. I must say there are friendships I've left drift in the last few years. Not dramatically, no falling out, just a natural distancing, slowly drifting apart for one thing or another. Mainly because what we had in common no longer exists. For example, young children and children's activities. Sometimes I miss those people or what we did together sometimes, but mostly it's okay for me. When we do catch up, it's fun, but we don't really have to. This is also true for the family. I feel when your priorities change within a family that has expectations of you, it needs some serious adjustments.
Yeah, and I feel like the three of us have actually navigated that reasonably well, don't you think?
Yeah, because we are brutally honest with each other, whether it's appreciated or not. We've
The
had
key,
some,
the
sorry,
key word being brutally.
we've had some seriously honest conversations, and not just on this podcast, and also interventions.
Blatant ones, you mean?
Can I just say, I don't appreciate all this honesty from you guys for the most time. Always ganging up on me, be honest, and we have the advantage of having watched each other grow up. I've seen Neha go from this lovely, complying teenager to this way too outspoken personality
Wow.
who is
Seriously.
thoughtful and mature. Please, God, have some patience. So when she changes, I'm not confused by it. I've watched the whole story. As for Sangu, you have been mostly consistent, I must say. Very honest in your interactions. No people pleasing for the most part. But what I love the most is what you see is what you get.
As for you, Amita, you are a work in progress.
Hang on, at being a saint.
No, we are constantly telling you to stop doing stuff for others and what other people want. and start doing what you want for a change.
Yes, I've taken that to the next level, as a few of my friends will tell you.
Oh no, there's a long way to go.
And I think that's actually the gift of having sisters and some friends who are like sisters who show you the mirror. You have people who are in it with you across all the chapters.
True. Good decision to say some nice things about us. Or this podcast would be three wheels, three directions.
It feels like that sometimes.
All right, let's do a quick rapid fire to end on a light note. We each share one priority we have dropped and one we have added. Things that are genuinely different from a few years ago. 1, 5, or 10, whatever. Amita, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I've dropped cooking up a storm when people come over, and I've started focusing on enjoying the company instead. And what have I added? Actually, I've stopped inviting people over for meals.
Great, period. Yeah.
It's just a drop in for a cup of tea or a drink. No pressure to serve homemade food. Focus on having a great conversation. In fact, actually, yesterday I did such a non-Indian thing. Mummy would be disgusted. A friend of mine was visiting from northern New South Wales, and she came over, and all I served was tea and biscuits. So,
I think she would have appreciated that.
actually, she's so sweet. Like, no, she doesn't expect anything ever, so that was really handy. Oh, I've also dropped being obsessed only with thinking about others. I've added myself to the mix too. Haha.
Good on you. Sangu?
I have actually dropped caring for what has been and what was in the past. I try not to dwell on what went on in my past life or past years. And I've added a whole bunch of new interests and enjoying each current happening. I try to live in the moment. I've started spending more time doing things I enjoy with the people who are important to me, my children, family, some friends.
Most of all, your sisters.
Yeah.
Least of all, my sisters.
Of course, top of the list.
How about you, Neha?
I'll talk about the past year because that's as far as I can go right now. Um, what I've dropped is social media as a daily obligation. I felt I had to watch every reel instantly that was sent to me by someone. I had to respond to every message straight away and comment on every post by friends, etc., etc. What I've done is trained myself not to do that because it was just time consuming. Also, I felt that overload of information was intimidating more than anything else. So instead, I have added, other than weight, of course, phone calls, actual voice calls with people I love. I just pick up the phone and call no matter what time of the day, depending on where my friend lives, just picking up the phone, having a conversation, even when it takes 40 minutes to say goodbye.
Right, the Indian goodbye. That's
That's it.
45 minutes after. Okay, I should let you go.
Oh, it's a given.
Non-negotiable. That's a wrap on today's episode. If this conversation hit anywhere close to home, please share it with a friend, sister, cousin, or anyone who might need the reminder that it's okay to look at your list and drop some things off. Is equal to prioritize.
And maybe add a few things that are actually yours.
You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'd love to hear in the comments which priorities you have dropped and which ones you have picked up that have worked for you.
And on that note, same three wheels, still figuring out the direction.
If this episode resonated with you, send it to someone in your life who's carrying more than people probably realize.
And if you've been postponing joy for 6 months, maybe this is your sign to book that trip you've been putting off. Follow and subscribe on your preferred socials and podcast channels. 3 wheels, 1 direction. Bye,
Bye for now.